waiting.
Yes. Well, I've got a sausage roll somewhere, and considering I haven't eaten all day, yeah, I'm starving myself. Hello there, everybody. If you are subscribed to us on YouTube, you will have got a notification that we are now live. We are about 2.5 minutes away from actually getting started with the show proper. Don't forget, you don't just have to watch on YouTube. If you don't fancy looking at my ugly mug for 35-40 minutes or so, you can listen to us on mixler.com, mixlr.com/Englishman SDCC. We've got ourselves an audio stream which goes out. We also take that audio stream and put it out onto SoundCloud and onto Apple Podcasts later on in the week, and we also chop the thing up and put it up on Instagram TV as well. So plenty of ways for you to follow us. And of course, you can listen live and watch live on our YouTube show each and every week. Don't forget, the chat room is up and running. Andrew Dickinson is watching and saying hello. How are you doing, Andrew? Nice to have you joining us. I know 1 or 2 people have been asking about updates about the website and how that's going to happen. The idea was that as of this weekend, the website was going to be, it's going to go dark. Basically, the holding page would go up on the homepage of an Englishman in San Diego.com, and basically I would have 4 weeks to create a website and have that ready for Monday the 1st of October. That is in place, but hopefully what we're going to be doing is keeping an Englishman in San Diego.com up and running for another couple of weeks, so we can take and archive some of our favorite posts from the website and put it over to the new site. We've got Sarita P joining us. Hello there. Waiting for the baseball to start. Priorities, man. What the hell? So yeah, basically, if you can share the video, share the socials, let everyone know that we're going to be live very shortly indeed. We were going to be having our usual 2 segments for this season. We were going to be having a live report from the Talkin Con show that's currently taking place this weekend. We were also going to be possibly joined by the organisers of Long Beach Comic Con. Unfortunately, the organisers of Long Beach Comic Con are on a train, and that proves rather problematic when it gets a strong signal. So unfortunately, they can't join us. Hopefully, however, we will be speaking to them in the middle of the week. So we'll be doing an incidental episode, so do stay subscribed and turn on the notifications down at the bottom, and it will let you know that when we are going live with our incidental episode with the organisers of Long Beach Comic Con this week. Should be fun. Right. We are, like I say, broadcasting on Mixler, so very shortly indeed I'll be hitting live on that. If you are subscribed, you'll get a notification and letting you know about that. But I think with the top of the hour and a cup of tea to hand, it's time to crack on. So if I hit start on there, we're live on that. Hello there, welcome along to Talkin Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. My name's Leonard Sultana, and each and every Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT, while the time zones all match together, we have ourselves a live show where we talk Comic-Cons, con culture, and all the fun and games that happen around it. We get ourselves some fantastic guests, and we allow you to ask as many questions as we can by jumping in on the YouTube Q&A. So do have any comments that you have about our guests, anything that you want to put to them, and of course anything that you want to talk about today, because we would love to hear from you, and we want to try and make it as interactive as possible. I've got the laptop a little bit closer this time so I can actually interact and jump in with any of your comments, so please jump in on those. Of course, if you're listening online as well on mixler.com/Englishman SDCC, we have the chat room open on that as well, so if you want to make any comments, do let us know. But I'd firstly like to introduce our special guest for today. We have somebody who it's always a pleasure to see. We have Alyssa Franks from the Friends of Comic Con Forum. Hello, Alyssa. How are you?
I'm well. Oh, I'm a special guest.
You are
nice.
Always a special guest.
Wonderful. Well, yes, usually, yes, regardless, I'm doing well. I'm doing actually very, very well. I will say that if people do want to join a buying group, now is the time to get on the forum and start the process. Make sure you're signed up, you know, all of those types of things, because we do have a poll running, and we are kind of expecting pre-reg returning reg to be happening sometime in the next couple of months, and we're getting our act together for it. Just to
Possibly
put that,
even in the next couple of weeks, by all accounts. It's looking like they'll be doing it very much sooner rather than later this time round at CCI.
and that's a wonderful thing. I think that's great. So just make sure that it's on people's radars to start the process, start thinking about it, make sure you've got all your ducks in order, you got your buying groups sorted, you got your friends and all of that sort of stuff. So that's that, and getting I'll go into it a little bit later, but getting all of that sorted has been the top of my priority.
No worries. No, it's this has all come down, of course, down to a couple of CCI announcements. So certainly when it comes to, I think there was child registration, which has prompted some of this as well. I believe that timetable runs out in the next week and a half. So yeah, it's all kind of scheduled around that. We did have conversations with CCI at Comic Con San Diego this year, and they were saying that they're wanting to return back to a previous timetable sooner rather than later. So we can't say fairer than that. At least we get ourselves organized quicker than we can. So that's good. And we also have somebody who appears to have disappeared off the screen, but I think that's because he's just getting himself nicely settled. We have Shane Chebsey from the ICE International Comic Expo from Birmingham. Hello, Shane. How are you?
Hello, guys. I'm very well, thank you. I was just sorting out my other bit of technology that I've got here, because I wanted to be able to access the website while I was talking to you. So.
Well, considering that you are in full-blown final stretch mode at this point, I can imagine that you are keeping your eyes on everything that's happening at the moment.
Very much so.
We'll get into that in a second. First things first, I just wanted to remind people, if you do want to support the website and everything that we do on the Hangout, please do go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/EnglishmanSDCC. As part of the Patreon give back, starting this week, we are going to be doing a live stream from 7:30 here in the UK, and I'll be talking for anything between 2 minutes to 2 hours. I don't know until I decide I'm bored. And so basically, if you are a supporter of the Patreon, we'll be doing a live stream. We're going to be doing that as an after show to the Hangout each and every week. So if you do support, do come along and join us and talk to us. I think I'll probably be talking about various controversies that have been kicking around in the comics stratosphere over the last 7 days, 14 days. So I'll probably be diving into that. So yeah, I'll just basically be talking about anything that kind of comes to mind, various pop culture announcements, I don't know, whatever we get up to. Do join us on the Patreon page, though. That live stream will be happening around 7:30 this evening. Right. Looking at the chat room, we've got 1 or 2 people who are in there already. We've got Chuck Cook, who's in there. Hello there. Omar Hassa saying maybe they want to get started at CCI, seeing as this is the 50th show and they want it to go off without any problems. That's not a bad note. It is obviously the big anniversary this year. Andrew Dickinson is someone who's been paying very close attention to this element, that the taxes for flights into the US have gone up dramatically, making it an extortionate thing to do for next year. And thankfully, the flights have dropped, but the taxes are still incredibly high. Looking here, he's spotted £670 Heathrow to LAX. That's not bad compared to recent years, but considering that we were looking anywhere between the taxes going from £99 to something like £150, £200. It's just gone slightly nuts in terms of the taxes.
Brexit,
possibly, but considering that apparently the taxes have gone up, not just for the UK, it's across the board. Oddly enough, taxes for Canada and Mexico through the roof. Where does that come from? Who knows? Somebody clearly has some beef, and that's a whole other podcast, and we won't even get into that.
So, my, yes, politics. Stay away from politics.
Politics, the weather, and football. Stay away. Stay away, man. Stay away. Right. So
the right kind of football. We can do the right kind of football.
Well, isn't fantasy football kicked off this week? Everyone's getting into that. Really? Fine.
Moving on.
Moving on. Okay, so Shane Chebsey, yeah, if you'd like to introduce yourself, because we've had you on the show before, but just in case anyone missed those earlier episodes, let us know who you are. Tell us about what got you into creating ICE.
Okay. Well, do you want the short story or the long story with that?
Long one.
Oh, God.
40 minutes worth. Talk.
Okay, well, ICE is predominantly a show that is all about the comics. When I stopped doing Bix back in 2011, I had a little break from doing shows, and I wanted to sort of prove to myself really that the ideas that I had for a show, the format and the type of guests and the events that we have, I wanted to sort of prove to myself that these ideas could work. So ICE was sort of my way of doing that, really. And I like to think that in some small way that has happened, you know. We've managed to create a nice little reputation for ourselves as a comics only, very well produced event. And it's always going to be sort of an international event with international guests, but it's also very much a British event as well, celebrating, you know, the homegrown talent.
What was the kind of landscape to conventions back then? I mean, certainly when I seriously started going into comic conventions, obviously you had a lot of, there was a very serious divide between comics only and the pop culture conventions. And also you had your little fandoms as well, your Star Trek conventions, your Star Wars shows as well. But there was this kind of like never the twain will meet. Was that still the case when you got started? Was it very much a case of you knew that there was this definite line between what you wanted to do and what everyone else was wanting to do?
Well, things have developed a lot over the last 5 years, I think, with conventions. And when I first started back in 2006, there was only one convention in the UK. Now there's 150 or something like that. So it really has, in a very short, relatively short space of time, exploded. And I think that, I mean, to answer your question, the landscape is dramatically different now. Yes, even when we started ICE back then, the media shows were only sort of starting to grow to where they are now, and it's changed in the last 5 years dramatically as well. It's almost an exponential growth in shows in general, not just comic shows, media shows, as you say, the fan shows like the Star Trek, and then you'll get even more specialized shows. There's Walker Stalker, you know, which is huge, which is just for Walking Dead. Now, obviously, that's a candle burning bright, but it's only going to burn for a short amount of time. You know, how long is that fandom going to generate that sort of interest? I don't know, but at the moment, it's absolutely massive. And it's the same with some of the other smaller shows as well. So where do we fit in with that? You know, we're about comics. We're not about any specific TV show. We're not about any specific genre. We're about a medium. So what we're doing is something very, very different to all those shows. But I think there has developed a divide, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. And I don't know what you guys think, but to me, I think there's something for everyone, and that's a good thing. That there are shows that cater for so many different sections of fandom now, and I think just defining that and shows making people aware of what they are and what they do is the important part. I think if you just put yourself as I'm a Comic-Con, then that doesn't really tell people anything about what you are. So I think it's really important when you're promoting your event to make it clear: are you about comics? Are you about The Walking Dead? Are you about Star Trek? Are you about manga? You know, as things get more and more specialized and fandoms get bigger and more specialized, I think it's we as organizers have to react to that.
Well, that's also kind of reflected with recent legal battles when it comes to the ownership of names, and also, like you say, just defining what you are, which is why I've always been impressed with, say, MCon here in the UK. They've never turned around and said that they are a Comic Con. They've always turned around and said they are a media show. And like you say with yours, it's Comics Expo. It's right there in the title. It tells people what it's all about. I mean, Alyssa, I mean, you've kind of heard there the idea of how the British landscape has evolved, certainly over the last, say, 7-10 years. I mean, are we kind of reflecting the American landscape in that regard, or are we playing catch up to the US model?
I'm not sure which one came first. You know, it's hard to say because our cultures are so intertwined. However, I applaud the move to defining conventions, Comic Cons further, because I think we are so oversaturated with cons that it gives somebody who may not be interested in media, you know, oh, a comic focused convention like San Diego Comic Fest or ICE, it gives me a place. That's where I want to go. I don't want to go to the MCM or the Wizard World, you know, those types of things. So I think they're growing simultaneously. That's my guesstimate. Feel free, people, to jump in on the chat and let me know whether or not my assessment is correct. Our assessment, I should say, is correct.
I think it's near as damn it. I mean, we've got here Chuck Cook, who's saying, why not both? I mean, yeah, we do have shows here in the UK which do cater to both. And I think the MCM certainly is the best known brand for that, in combining both. And to be fair, MCM have been known more as a media show here in the UK, although that is getting shifted as reflected by their guest list, certainly at London. Omar Hassar saying you forget cosplay, geeky girls, and unhealthy amounts of soda. Yes, that is a very important part to a convention. Bad food. That I understand. I appreciate that.
Just to point out, Omar is Sir Lester of SMEG. He's on his work account. So yes, that was like, oh yes.
Fair enough.
Thank you so much for letting us know.
I should have recognized the tone.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, Sir Lester of SMEG. Cool. I will say, just to add to this point, I'm thinking about going to Long Beach Comic Con next weekend. I asked a couple of my comics friends whether or not they were going. And they both responded to me saying, no, that's a cosplay con. Save your money.
Wow. Okay.
So
that's interesting.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah. Exactly.
When I mean, we're used to seeing fandoms getting split down and kind of like really branching into their own individual corners of the world. But when conventions start doing it, it's when we're really starting to kind of like into the macro of things.
Well, I would not say Long Beach Comic Con is a cosplay con. That's their perception of it. It has a big science component, which is what I'm, of course, attracted to. So there are other attractions. That's their perception. And when you start marketing yourself as one or the other, you automatically do cut out, some people.
Yeah. It is all about perception. It's like you say. I mean, I think also, Shane, returning to ICE, talking about the International Comics Expo. When you first started the show, was it important to have that international aspect? Were you able to actually do that in your first couple of years? What was the kind of the guest lineup, the landscape of the first couple of ICE shows?
Oh, okay. So yeah, straight from the beginning. I mean, with the name was International Comic Expo, so if it has to do what it says on the tin. You know, if I didn't have international guests, it would be a bit wrong, wouldn't it? So yeah, the first show was 2014, I think, for ICE.
Let's take you back.
It does. That's a while now, isn't it? It's 4 years. Gosh. So yeah, we had Steve Rude come over. He was our sort of big American name, I guess, a bit of a legend, and he was a great guest. But I remember actually talking to Steve years before ICE about him coming over, and we tried to make it work, and it didn't work for years. And then that year, it all came together. But I remember I had to spend an absolute fortune on his flight. You're talking about flights. I mean, they have gone up considerably over, but I've been very lucky actually this year. I've managed to find a couple of, a few bargains on the flights. But yeah, I mean, God, it was expensive to bring him over, but he was worth every penny. He really was.
I'm curious actually, because I'm wondering if it's the same approach that, say, Lakes or Thought Bubble or anyone else that gets international guests. How do you sell it to the talent? Is it a case of, yes, come over for the convention, fine, but do you want to come over for a week? Well, here's a English holiday for you, for stay a couple of days and enjoy, go down to London, see, yeah. Is it a case of you have to, do you sell it as more of a package holiday, as it were?
Well, yeah, there is a little bit of that, to be honest. I mean, some of the guys are quite happy to fly in and fly out, but some want to see London. Some, Joe Rubinstein went over to Paris when he came here, because it's a really cheap way for them to go to Paris as well, or to anywhere else in Europe or Ireland. A lot of the American guys like to visit places like Dublin and Cork. So it's a really cheap way. We'll pay for their flight over here. All they've got to do is get on a ferry, So there are attractions, other than the beautiful city of Birmingham.
Indeed.
There are ways of getting people over. And, you have to use a little bit of charm sometimes. That's a secret. And I'm not going to tell anyone how I do that. So you're just going to have to take my word for it.
It's called bribery, everybody. He has a dungeon with some toys in it, which he doesn't like to tell everybody about. He likes to keep that one to himself. I mean, we were talking before we came on air about, say, for example, Donny Cates, who's here, and it doesn't seem like he's leaving the UK anytime soon. He was here for the NICE convention this weekend just gone. I know that he's doing some things over the next couple of weeks. I know he's doing some like a store appearance or two. He's doing MCM Scotland. He seems to be having an extended European stay. And
yeah, I don't know if he's going back, but I will say, Donny, if you're listening, come to Birmingham. I'll look after you. We'll have a good time.
Yeah. So there you go. That'll be the pitch. I will try and get in contact with him. We'll let him know. Let's have a look at one or two other comments. I mean, if there are any comments about the UK landscape, maybe any Americans that are watching that want to know how the UK conventions kind of are lining up, because things are definitely changing here in the UK when it comes to how conventions are done. I mean, what would you say? Oh, go on, Alyssa.
Chuck Cook brings up an interesting point. It's a bit up on the chat. The thing that he worries about is con burnout. Small cons are awesome, but here in SoCal, there's one almost every weekend. If you're going to go to one this weekend, then you're not going to go to another one next weekend. It's just, there's too many.
We are starting to get a little bit like that here in the UK as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that assessment, to be honest myself. It is getting very, very crowded now, and you just have to offer something different to everybody else, because there's a lot of cons that just follow a formula, and it's the same formula at every con. You go there, and it's the same guests, it's the same events with the same titles in the same sort of venues, and I think you just have to think a little bit outside the box and offer something a little bit different, and you have to put your personality and your passion into your event, which is something that we've always prided ourselves on, because
okay,
tell me if I'm wrong.
I actually went to a volunteer meeting for San Diego Comic Fest. It's a smaller, kind of niche comic focused convention here in SoCal, and it happens in the early spring. So this volunteer meeting was 6 to 8 months prior to the show. And what they were asking for is ideas for panels. So it didn't become, as like you were saying, the formula. So that seems to be one of the ways that smaller conventions are setting themselves different than the formulaic cons, of asking, the locals, asking the volunteers, asking the knowledge base of the people that are putting the show on. Hey, what would you like to see? Who do you want to see? If they do an interesting thing with uh, uh, a law. I think the last time they had a panel on the X-Men, whether or not they should have rights or not. So they had a lot of interesting little quirky panels, which I'm not sure where I was going with this, but I trust that Leonard can take over from here.
I think I can, if anything, because certainly I think that's something that has changed a lot here in the UK convention landscape. It's something that I noticed when I started going to American conventions, that their focus is on the panels. It's the interaction and seeing something on stage, hearing someone talking on stage at length about a subject and a number of topics. Whereas here in the UK, the conventions were more about face-to-face interactions, lining up to actually meet for however brief to talk to somebody, walk away with whatever they managed. I mean, if it was a smaller convention, you got maybe 10-15 minutes with somebody. If it's the big ones, obviously get seconds, get something signed and away. Here in the UK, we're starting to see more conventions like ICE putting on panels and putting on more talk-based content. I mean, what would you say? When did you see that actually becoming a thing for yourself and also for UK cons, Shane?
Well, for me, it was always right from the start, to be honest. It's what separated our events from a lot of the other events. Even when I was doing BICS, James and I always spent a lot of time planning the panels, talking to the guests, talking to the hosts. I mean, being a host on my events, a lot of thought goes into it, and we try and get the best guests and the best hosts. God, that was creepy. But we did, and I remember years ago, about 2007, we had Mike Mignola over, and we were lucky enough also to have Duncan Figueiredo in the building as well. So we deliberated, and we took ages writing the write up for the event, how we were going to sell it, and what the content was going to be. Talking to Mike and Duncan about what they were going to talk about, because we didn't want to just put them in a room and say, "There you go for it." We wanted to have an idea of what was going to happen, and we've carried that through, and I've carried that through with ICE. I'd spend a lot of time talking to guys like Barry and Dave at Geek Syndicate about how we're going to plan the events that we do with them. They always do like a chat show event at ICE, and a lot of thought goes into that. So I think from day one, that's been really important for us. I don't think it's something that has developed. Maybe we sort of spearheaded the idea, perhaps, but it's always been there for us. It's always been very important, and it always will be.
When it comes to the guest list, I mean, like I say, you've gotten some fantastic guests over the years, especially from the international comic scene. But what I've always found interesting is with ICE that the people that come to the show are actually as much as, if not more, interested in the local talent, in the UK talent, and you really go out to really kind of champion the UK talent here, and that you bring over. I mean, have you seen that shift at all? That you've seen the Brits being more represented? Because you've always been a big supporter of, say, Phoenix and of 2000 AD, for example.
Yeah, I think it's really, and we'll always have creators from the British comics at the show. That's always very important, especially 2000 AD, especially the Beano, comics like that. And we know that some fans, haven't got an interest in that. but a lot have, and it's also very interesting for people who aren't, hardened comic fans. These well-known British institutions, they need to be represented. So, and I do find as well that some of these guys, like you say, will get just as big a queues. Glenn Fabry last year at Birmingham had a huge queue of fans. And it surprised me, to be honest. It did. I mean, no disrespect to Glenn, he's a fantastic, internationally renowned artist. But I've been to cons before where I've spent half an hour chatting to him at his table because there's nobody there. I think there has been not a shift, but I think people are starting to realise the wealth of talent that we've actually got in this country. And we'll always showcase it at ICE.
Excellent. Like I say, if there's any questions, do jump in, because what I do want to get into, as well as talking about ICE, is just the general landscape of comic conventions in the UK. So do have any questions that you have. Also, how it kind of ties in with the US conventions as well. I do want to talk about the way that you've gone from expanding from the Birmingham show to the other shows as well, because you do run 2 other satellite shows. If you could tell us a little bit about those.
Well, it's been an interesting 12 months or so, actually, with the other shows, because we did the one in Margate, which you were at. And I think, to be honest, that was panel-wise, that was probably one of the best shows we've ever done. The quality of panels that we had there. Unfortunately, Margate wasn't particularly busy. I don't know whether it was because of the location or whether because it clashed with something else. But it wasn't our busiest show. So I have made the decision that it won't return. Which is a shame because, like I say, the actual content of the
gorgeous
event,
location as well.
Yeah. Amazing venue. I loved working with those guys. They were absolutely fantastic, really professional, beautiful venue. And the Margate people, the community there was so supportive. The comic shops, the fans, all the different people. I'm just going to get rid of a call.
Okay.
Somebody's trying to phone me. That's okay, it's sorted. And it's a shame that we just didn't get the turnout to make it worth our while. So we will be cutting that one out. But it was a good experience, and I'm glad I did it.
I really enjoyed it as well, because down in that corner of the world, you do have some incredible talent down there. And the chance for me to get to speak to Siberia, that was worth my journey time alone. That was awesome to get to talk to Cy, because he's just had his Sandman book released. He's got the first episode or first issue of Sandman universe. Oh no, Sandman, his section of the Sandman thing come out this week. So looking forward to reading that. So no, just to get to speak to him was just amazing. But also, just like you say, the other talent that you got down there was very special. But then you've also got the Brighton show as well.
That's right. Now, Brighton went pretty well last year, so we're having another crack at it this year. It's good just to take the joy, take the comics to other places as well as Birmingham. So we're having another crack at Brighton this year. We've got some interesting people coming along to that. Actually, I think Glenn Fabry is one of our guests for that. So he's got friends in Brighton, so it was an easy sell. Rachel Smith as well is going to that one, and Maria Laura Sanapo and Marco Santucci are going to be there. So we've got some really cool people coming along to that, so I'm really excited about it. And once Birmingham's over and done with, we're going to start really sort of plugging Brighton, so you'll hear lots more about it in the next few weeks.
When do you start? What's the lead up times to these events? Obviously Birmingham is the big one, so that's I can imagine from the moment that the doors shut on Birmingham on the Monday, you're pretty much off to the races for the next one. What's the lead up time for, say, the smaller satellite shows?
Well, to be honest, Brighton is almost as big as Birmingham these days. So I've been working on it since the last one, really, behind the scenes. I haven't done much promotion for it because I've been concentrating on Birmingham, but I've been doing a lot of work on it. So the lead time, I'd like to have at least a year for any event, preferably more, but it tends to be only a year because you finish one event and then you start work on the next year, So, but you do work as well, sort of in advance of that. You might talk to a few guests, for instance. I mean, I was talking to Carl Potts about coming over 2 years before he actually came over, because you have to, get the dates right. You have to make sure that they're available. Some of these guys like to work in advance. Some of them don't like to work in advance, and they'll ring you a month before the show and say, yes, I'm available, I can do it. And by then you've spent your budget, and it's like, well, actually, I don't want to say no, but so that can be a bit awkward. But yeah, you have to sort of give yourself as much lead time as possible, at least a year, I would say. I've heard of people organising cons in, 2 or 3 months. I don't know. I don't know how they do that. I don't know how they do that.
Fair enough. I wanted to talk about Birmingham in terms of the lineup. Can you give us the elevator pitch? Go on then, if you want to sell.
The elevator pitch.
Go on then. Sell us Birmingham. Who have you got coming? Without mentioning my name once.
Well, we have got some international guests as always. So from Spain, we've got Carlos Osquera, the legendary co-creator of Judge Dredd. I don't really think I need to tell anyone that, but just in case. Alessandro Vitti's coming back over to the UK for us. Just been talking to him this weekend about his flight. So he's done some great work for Marvel and DC. And I'm looking forward to seeing him again because he's a really nice guy as well.
I think that will be an interesting chat. I'll be sitting in on the Q&A on that one because I did the Q&A for Alessandro in Brighton, and it was just as Iceman was about to come out, and there'd been a lot of lead up to that, a lot of controversy about Iceman being very much openly gay. It was a lot of interest and furore about it. We're now talking past the book it's now coming to the final issues, I believe, so to speak. So it'd be interesting to talk to him about the life of that book as it's gone through.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting retrospective, actually, because there was a lot of press interest at the time, I remember, and a big deal was made about it. And sometimes for all the wrong reasons, There's some negative press, and it's a shame because it was a nice book. So yeah, we've also got Rodney Ramos coming over from the States. Looking forward to seeing him again. He's always good entertainment. But as I say, the UK is very well represented as always. And because it's the Beano 80th anniversary this year, we've gone to a bit of an effort to invite a few Beano artists along. And we're going to do a special panel celebrating the Beano with some of their sort of key artists over the years. So we've got the current Dennis the Menace artist, Nigel not Richardson, that's Ian. Nigel Parkinson, get it right, Shane. He's going to be there. Lou Stringer, as always, absolute legend of the industry. Laura Howell hasn't done ICE yet, I don't think. So I think this will be her first. She's done some big shows for me over the years, but I don't think she's ever been to ICE. So I think this is going to be her first one. So she's going to be involved in that, and also the legendary Hunt Emerson, who I've not seen for quite a while. So it'd be really nice to catch up with him. So that's going to be our Beano panel. So just that alone is sort of a bit of a star-studded affair. But also we've got writers like artists, I should say. Ian, as I mentioned earlier, Ian Richardson, he's going to be there. Staz Johnson, Ben Oliver, David Roach, Phil Winslade. I mean, it just goes on, really. John Davis Hunt, and this is going to be his first ICE as a guest. You put your finger up.
I am a huge fan of that man. Huge fan of that man. If you get the chance, everyone, if you've not checked out his book, which he's doing with Warren Ellis, which is The Wildstorm, it's jaw-dropping stuff. I'm a huge John fan. Love that guy.
Yeah, I mean, the artwork is really nice, isn't it? It's he's got a certain quality to his art that you don't often see in sort of British comics, actually, and it's almost got a European quality to it, and it's really nice stuff. Really nice stuff. So I'm looking forward to him welcoming him as the first to his first ICE, and then obviously we've got John Wagner as well, representing the writers. John Wagner. And also Ian Edgington, So it's great to have John and Carlos in the building at the same time. I mean, we've managed to do that once before, but it doesn't happen that often. So for the Judge Dredd fans, it's a really big treat.
Cool. That's going to be a lot of fun. If anything, just to kind of like talk about that, the lifespan of 2000 AD and how it's transformed into the book it is today. They were there at the formative start. They've always been outspoken about certain periods in the 2000 AD history. So it's going to be fun to actually hear them talk. So that's going to be cool. Do you have any questions, Alyssa, before we dive into slightly bigger topics? Because, okay, well, in that case, we'll dive into this then, because I'm going to put a scenario to you, which I spotted at MCM London last year. This was when Repop had literally just taken on MCM. They hadn't even announced it, really. So this was in November. They then got the first proper show in London where it was under the Repop banner, and they got themselves 4 amazing guests to come over. We're talking Jeff Darrow. We're talking legends here. But what was really interesting in the comics village area, while the rest of the aisles were absolutely rammed with people checking out the UK talent and getting sketches done for £5 and headshots for 20, they would then come around the corner and see these incredible artists, Ken Lashley, Jeff Darrow, etc., and seeing £200 or £150 for a headshot and just going, really? Who and moving on. Do you think that there is this kind of like possibility that you can go too big with your guests to kind of like shrink out the rest of the people that have been invited? I mean, how do you find that balance yourself when it comes to putting your shows together? You know, kind of like bridging that gap, as it were.
Yeah, I don't think it's a case of those guests being too big. I think it's a case of the fans who attend MCM in general not being fully aware of who those guests probably are. You know, MCM until recently has been predominantly a media and manga event. So the people it attracts aren't necessarily comics fans. And it's quite a young demographic as well at MCM. So they might not remember the work of Jeff Darrow, for example. So it's difficult for them to see why they should spend, you know, maybe £200 on a sketch. But I don't think that's because the guests are too big. I don't think that, you know, I don't think you have to worry about, you know, somebody charging £20 and somebody else charging £200. I think there's always going to be, you know, that sort of, you know, pecking order, if you like.
I think that's,
and you get what you pay for at the end of the day.
That's the term, the pecking order, I think, is definitely the term which possibly I was looking for. I mean, for example, last year at Birmingham, you had the excellent John Tyler Christopher joining you. Did you see a not a disconnect? I'm trying to think of a word that would kind of work with that. Like I say, that distancing between the other guests that were at that would be tabling at an artist alley here in the UK, and a headliner like John Tyler Christopher.
But it's always a line to tread, isn't there? I mean, John Tyler was well, he's a big name in certain circles, but there are people who'd never heard of him, you know. And as it happened, if I remember correctly, he sketched for free as well.
He didn't stop.
No, it was constant. I mean, the guy, he's sort of an anomaly, really, because he did everything for free. He was just a great guest because he gave so much of his time. He cares so much for the fans, and he cares so much for their experience. So he was a perfect fit for ICE because he totally bought into us and what we are about, you know, which is creating that experience for the fans, creating that magic, that feeling that they're somewhere special. They're going to meet some special people who are really talented, and John just fit right into that. Not everybody does, you know. We've had some guys asked to come over, and they've said, "Oh yeah, my commission list starts at you know, £300. I can do 5 commissions a day. So that's not really going to add to the experience of the 1,000 people that might turn up and want to meet you. You know, they just want a quick sketch. That's all they want. And most people are pretty happy to pay pretty good money for that quick sketch. So we're not always, we've actually, I wouldn't say we've refused people, but I've not encouraged some of those people to come over because I don't think they're a fit for ICE. As big a name as they might be, I don't think they're going to sort of fit in with our ethos. Saying that, I will never say never. You know, at the right year, at the right time, anybody could be eligible, as it were. But to go back to your original point about you know, the experience of the big comic names at MCM and stuff like that, I think that there is a difference with the people who go to these shows, and I think, you know, for example, Jeff Darrow would have a huge queue at ICE. You know, it would be constant because the people who come to ICE love comics. And we've created that over the years. You know, the people who come to ICE are the people who love the comics and who love reading the comics. And in the same way that MCM have created their crowd, you know, and I don't think there's anything wrong with either one. What they're trying to do now to sort of bring comics in, I think it's great actually that they're doing that.
I'm wondering if it's something that they're trying to fill a space that was left by London Super Comic Con, perhaps.
Perhaps, yeah, because a lot of congoers are very London centric. They only go to London events, so maybe they do see that there's a void there. But also, you know, they've been brought by Repop, so Repop are, you know, they've always been into comics, you know, and they've had that address book. They have that pull, as it were. So why not utilize it? I think it's a really worthy experiment, and I think that a lot of comics fans will now give it a go, and they should go and they should support the artists who are coming over, and show them that, you know, UK fans are interested in their work. Whether or not that happens, I don't know. We'll see.
It's like it's a big experiment. Like I say, I think Scotland is very much like we've seen with recent shows with and a couple of headliners, which they've got coming over. You've got Donny Cates here in the country anyway. You've got yourself Brian Azzarello, who's going to be here. But yeah, the guest list for London, it's immense. It's not just, we're talking people who deserve the title legend. It's going to be I think this one's going to be the experiment, and I'm hoping it doesn't kind of fail on them, if that makes any kind of sense. Okay, we were talking earlier about the way that conventions do seem to be filling the calendar each and every weekend, and you kind of expressed that kind of concern as well about possible con burnout. How do you see organizers combating that? How do you, I mean, can you see conventions kind of joining forces to kind of narrow the calendar down to make it more appealing for people here in the UK or just generally? Can you see consolidations happening, or is it more a case of, no, we're doing our thing, let everyone else do theirs? You do as it were.
I mean, I sort of touched on your question a little bit before about, you know, cons having to adapt, but I think your point about consolidating and joining forces, that's quite an interesting one, because that's definitely something that I've considered. Because the thing is, you do have, every organizer has their own vision about what they want to do. So you can only really work with somebody else who shares a similar vision. They've got to have the same values. They've got to want to achieve the same thing. Otherwise, you're just going to end up arguing about what you're doing, you know, and that's never going to work. So yeah, I mean, I have thought about that, and I am actually working with another organizer on a possible event next year. Well, I say possible event; it's almost 99% going to happen. So yeah, I think that is an option.
Is this a scoop? Is this an exclusive?
Well, it could be. I'm not sure I can say anything because it's not official yet. But I'll make sure you get the scoop when it happens. Okay.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But yeah, I am going to work with another organizer on a new event next year. So that is something I've considered. It's something I'm going to do. And I think that other organizers do need to look at that possibility. If you pool your resources and if you have the same values and you want to achieve the same things, for example, I can see a few cons that could work together. Like Thought Bubble and the Lakes, for example, could work together. I've offered to sort of guest share with people. I've shared actually a guest with London Comic Con on one occasion. Dan Slott last year we shared the cost, and I think if you can do that, I think it's better for the fans because they're more likely to be able to, if you pool your resources, you can bring more people over. So yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Certainly something I'm open to, but I know a lot of organisers won't be open to that idea because, it's their baby. They want to do it their way. But sometimes you can't be precious. Sometimes you've got to let things slide and you've got to think of the bigger picture, and well, what do I actually want to achieve? Do I, I am just achieving something for myself or am I trying to achieve something for the community, the larger community,
Which is why I always find it interesting when I do see convention organizers at other conventions, because it's almost like, right, okay, so you're just checking out the competition then. So I always find that interesting. I mean, what's your take usually when you see, say, someone like Jeff Chattal coming through the door at ICE?
Well, Jeff's been coming to my shows since the beginning, I think, since 2007, I think was the first one he came to. And he's always, he's so cheeky. I remember the first time he came to one of my shows, I remember he had this white suit on and I remember thinking, what does he look like? And he came into my show and he tried to sort of, he wanted to come into the VIP party, but he hadn't paid for a ticket, I don't think. And he was like, oh, go on, let us in. And I remember thinking, who is this guy? He's a cheeky sod. And I just struck up a friendship with him, really. And because he is very cheeky, but he's very funny and he loves his comics and he's very genuine and he's a very good guy. And a lot of people, they meet Jeff and they think, oh, he's a bit of a white boy, isn't he? But he's such a good, genuine guy and he's helped me out so many times with ICE. A lot of people don't know that. He's helped me out with driving guests from airports and just been really supportive, and given me ideas, helped me share the news, exhibited at ICE, So, some organisers, you like to see them at your show, because they're friends. And I would say most, actually. I never think of other Comic Con organisers as competition as such. I'd much rather like to think of it as we're all trying to do the same thing, and let's just try and do the best job we can. I mean, if I was in this for if I wanted, sorry, go on.
I think that's why I sniggered at the thought of Thought Bubble and Lakes working together, considering that they have fought for the same Council Arts grant and they've made no bones about how competitive they are about each other's events. So I think. Yeah,
I don't think there's a need to be competitive with. If you're doing a real comics convention that's about comics, you shouldn't be competing with each other. You should be working together. I mean, if I was in this for the money, I'd be doing something else. You don't make money. It's not a money thing. Maybe it is for some people. You'd be a rock
star, is what you'd be.
Sorry,
you'd be a rock star, is what you'd be.
I'm already a rock star. What are you on about? In my head.
Yep. Cosmic Rays available at what's the website for Cosmic Rays?
I don't think we've even got a proper website.
Okay, fine.
We've got a Bandcamp page. We do it for fun,
It's also handy to have a band play on the evening of a convention. So
that's how it started. That's how Cosmic Rays started. Was let's get a comics band together. It wasn't called Cosmic Rays then. It was called something else, and it was all different people. I wasn't even a member of the band, but yeah, that's where it all originated from in 2006. The idea of let's get some comic creators together and form a band, and that was it. The rest is history,
Who'd have thought Charlie Adler would be a really good drummer? Who'd have thunk that? I mean, good grief. Okay, so we've got a couple of questions that have come in. I mean, well, actually, it's more comments more than anything. Super Cat Chick is saying, as an attendee, I think it's really important to create an identity and stick with it. I hate when a con isn't getting the numbers they want and they start changing what makes their event unique. I'm guessing that's a big challenge as well.
It is. It is. I mean, this is another reason I've done events in different towns, because it means that I can change the way I do events and experiment a bit. Like we had a few movie people at Margate, which didn't do us any harm at all because it was a different type of event. I'm just going to go and close my window because somebody's drilling outside. It's really annoying me. But bear with me.
Okay.
Inconsiderate people drilling on a Sunday.
What are they like?
What are they like? So yeah, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, what was I talking about? Just remind me.
Just the competition between keeping an event's identity.
That's right. Yeah. So identity. So yeah, that's the guy's question. Yeah. It is very important, I think, to keep your identity and to keep, what makes you unique. And ICE Birmingham, we've always wanted to keep it about comics. And so we always will, and the events and all that sort of thing. So I totally agree with the guy or girl. I don't know.
It's a girl, yes, indeed.
It's a girl. Sorry.
It is.
But I totally agree with her.
Cool. Excellent.
I'm sorry to interrupt Shane and Leonard. We've got about 5 minutes left to go in the show.
Yes.
And I do have a big announcement that I need to make before the end of the show.
Yeah.
Like I said, I am sorry, Leonard.
No worries. Well, I'll tell you what, I was going to start wrapping things up with Shane, just to say thank you very much indeed for coming on the show, and also allow people to find out more about ICE themselves. Where's the best place for people to go to find out about this year's show?
The best places to go is probably our main website, which is thecomicsshow.co.uk, and you can also find us on Facebook at ICE Comic Con.
Excellent stuff. I'm looking forward to it because, like I say, I'm going to be hosting a panel there. I'm also going to be attending the Comics Uncovered event the following day on the Sunday. It's going to be a fun weekend, I think, and I will be bringing a report from the show like we do each year. So looking forward to that. Shane, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, G, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Leonard.
We'll let you get off and enjoy the rest of your Sunday, sir.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye, Alyssa.
Thank you, Shane.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed for Shane for joining us. Right. So I've got a couple of things as well, but we'll let Alyssa do hers first. Away you go, Alyssa.
This is my last show. Just to just to let everybody know, I have this whole thing written out. As everybody knows, this past year has been very tumultuous for me, to say the least. I've divorced my husband of 20 years, got my 18-year-old out of the nest, moved across country. Through all of this, the Hangout and all of its viewers have been the one constant, an escape from the stress and anxiety of what was going on around me. For that, I will always be very grateful. I've often used the term, and I forget who first coined it, our weekly therapy session, and that went double for me. It was really a touchstone. Folks probably didn't know that I've been on anti-anxiety meds for the past couple of years. So having the touchstone of like-minded friends was huge, and I really appreciate it. But since I've arrived in San Diego, the transitions have continued. I'm finally starting to look forward, following my gut, and figuring out what the next step will be. So far, I have landed in some pretty excellent situations. Great house, just love being in San Diego. It's all kind of ironic because I've always been a hyper planner. And I have to give my son props for encouraging me not to plan and to go with the flow. He didn't put it like that. You having known my son, I think some of you having known my son, you'll know that. But it didn't diminish the message. Trust the force, Luke, is perhaps one that everybody will understand. When moving out here, I thought I'd be more social, going to comics related events every weekend. I think we touched on that earlier, but that hasn't been the case. And I actually have found myself drifting away from comics and the surrounding promotions and conventions, and have been more excited by classes at a local community college in computer admin and with some coding. Since I can't really add to the conversations on the Cup of Tea Hangout, since it's more comic related and convention related these days, I'm bowing out of doing the weekly show. I hope to be invited back on occasion for live reports or doing a media show. Really excited about seeing Searching this weekend. Saw Operation. Saw the one about the Nuremberg trials last week. So I am interested in the media shows and cooking shows and all of those sorts of things, but I can't be involved on a weekly basis going forward due to my intense class schedule. I'm scheduled myself in for about 35 hours of computer classes per week, and this doesn't factor in homework. So I simply do not have the time to keep current on convention-related stuff. In closing, I am tremendously excited by the next phase of my life. And am thinking even about starting to wean myself off of the anxiety meds. But Bud, the bearded dragon, and I are in a very good place. And people will already know where to find me. Just feel free to reach out if you ever want to grab a beer or a bowl of pho or any of that sort of stuff. And I intend to chime in on occasionally on the chat from time to time. But I wanted to just let people know, give people an understanding that I am in a good place and moving forward with my life, because I won't be here as often as I have been in the past. So and I just wanted to say thank you to Leonard for the past few years. It's been great. Thank you to everybody, the fans. It's really been very important to me to have this. And you can tell how emotional I am about leaving, but I'm going to a good place.
You're not leaving. We will be having you back on, like I say. I mean, we've got some great shows coming up, which I'm really looking forward to having you joining us back on. I know we're going to be speaking to Mike Armstrong from New York Comic Con again, and I'm really looking forward to having you on to talk to him about how New York is evolving. But I mean, I know that when you've attended conventions, you've been really excited by shows like New York, which have had more science-based elements to them, and I know that's a really big and important part of your life, the science of the world and how the world works, and I know that's really important to you.
I just got some wonderful message on Facebook. I'm not on the chat, and I'm sorry. Yes. Super Gadget, thank you, and Sarita and Chuck. Oh, you guys are wonderful. Thank you so much. Yes, I will be. Like I said, I hope to be doing some live shows and coming on occasion. I can't devote the time to the prep and the coming up with ideas and all of this. And I hate to say this, and Erin from hallh.com. We may be coming back, Leonard, and doing a cooking series in January.
Go for it. Go for it.
So just, like I said, we still intend to be there. I still intend to be around. It's just I can't devote the time to it that I was able to do it before.
I appreciate that.
So
I appreciate that. But I mean, it sounded there for a second like you were just leaving us and leaving the community altogether and leaving the hangout completely. And I want to say that you have an open invitation whenever you feel that you want to come back on and join us on a show that, like you say, there's a guest that you want to talk to and talk with us. Because I know it's been difficult when we've been having guests on where you haven't been able to kind of engage with them. It's been awkward.
Right, exactly. And that really is my point, is that I can't, if I can't add to the conversation, there's no point in me being here. And my mind is elsewhere. My mind is on the classes that I'm going to be taking and my future. And unfortunately, it's not. I'm phasing out of conventions. I'm still going to go to them. I still like friends. Like all of the people that I
You
met
are still
there.
coming to San Diego, right?
I live in San Diego.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Still going to be in San Diego, and and doing that, and I want to go to Designer Con. I'm really hoping to go to Designer Con. That one has really got my interest. So there's a few different things. I just, there are other people that you could have as co-host, Leonard, who will be able to add more to the conversation than I will. And so I trust that you can find them, and on occasion I'll pop back in. And like I said, not having to get up at 9:30 and get dressed on a Sunday morning is kind of a really neat thing. Like laying in bed. I was laying in bed like at 9 o'clock this morning with a butt on my chest, going, I would really like to not get up right now, but I had to,
Yeah.
So
I totally get it. And all I can say is, don't be a stranger. Don't be a stranger at all. I mean, like you say, the comments that are coming in on the chat room are absolutely, it's great. Chuck Cook, I'm all about the cooking series.
Thank you, Chuck.
And
I need the votes.
And you should call the baking show Empire Bites Back. I like the title of that.
But I don't bake. I love, the Great British Baking Show, but I don't bake. So unfortunate.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, I mean, like I say, we look forward to having you back. I mean, you say that you're leaving us. I don't think that's. We won't say goodbye. We'll just say au revoir for now. We will have you back. We will have you back. So there we go.
You don't do the French well.
I try to avoid the best I can, to be honest.
Yes.
There you go. Okay.
Like
well, thank you. I mean, for myself,
the friendships that we've established are eternal.
Absolutely. I mean, I would like to say it's been a pleasure having you as the co-host on the show, and it's just been, like you say, it's been a long road, and it's just been a lot of fun to travel it with you. It's just been amazing. It's been amazing. So thank you very much indeed for helping me make the show what it is, and that's all. It is down to you. So thank you. Right.
Well, I just wanted to give people an explanation and a closure, so that people I just didn't vanish. So that's why, yeah.
Fair enough.
Moving on.
Okay, just a couple of things then to wrap things up. We're running a competition over we've run it for the last week, running it for one more week, and we'll be announcing a winner next Sunday, which is our Cup of Tea competition. It's to win a San Diego Comic Con 2018 souvenir guide. This is the one with the Marvel anniversary, a 10-year anniversary artwork on the cover, which was revealed and released as a Mondo print this year, done by UK artist Matt Taylor. I'm actually going to be meeting up with Matt in the next couple of weeks. He's going to be signing it, and that's what we're going to be giving away, a signed copy by the artist of the San Diego Comic Con Souvenir Guide for 2018. If you want to enter that, what you need to do is contact us via the Twitter, via Facebook, and basically share your favorite Comic-Con memory. It can be video, it can be a picture, it can be a post. We've already had some fantastic entries so far. All you have to do is just post them either on our Facebook or on our Twitter using the hashtag CupOTCompetition. Like I say, it doesn't have to be San Diego Comic-Con either. It can be any convention at all. Your favorite memories of joining in with these fandoms that we love. Okay, so that's the competition. We announce the winner next Sunday. So please get your entries in as soon as you possibly can. Next week, we will be talking to two amazing groups of guests. We're going to be speaking to Paul and Jeff from Legion M, who had their first San Diego Comic-Con at the Harbour House restaurant, taking that venue over and showcasing what they're bringing to the entertainment landscape with their crowdfunding layouts, which Legion M are developing. Very interesting to see what they saw as their first San Diego Comic-Con and what they are intending to bring to films, television, and all the other entertainments that they're wanting to do. It's an interesting company, fascinating company, and I think they're two interesting guests. That's Paul and Jeff. And then we're going to be joined as well by Julie Tate, one of the members of Thought Bubble, fingers crossed, who's going to be joining us because Thought Bubble takes place in 2 weeks' time, and we'll hopefully be joined by a member of the team from Thought Bubble to talk about the show that they're bringing to Leeds, which is one of the biggest shows, which is comics based here in the UK. So that's what we're going to be doing next week. Thankfully, we will be also joined by a returning co-host. We have Mark Serby, who's going to be joining us next week. So he's going to be joining me, and hopefully you will join us as well. Alyssa, where will people be able to find you online?
As I'm swallowing.
Yes, I do apologize. The timing was fantastic, wasn't it?
Perfect. People can always find me on Twitter at Friends of CCI, or my personal Twitter, which is at Alyssa Franks. That's primarily where I'm going to be posting things that are relevant to me. Sometimes I can get a little bit political. People will know that. But I absolutely keep that off of the Friends of CCI posts. People can also always find me on the forum and on the blog, which is friendsofcc.com.
Excellent. Dan Berry saying maybe a live report from Long Beach Comic Con. I don't know if Dan's going to be there. Maybe he can kind of jump in for 10-15 minutes to go. I mean, are you going to that?
Well, I may. I'll decide probably on Wednesday, and I'll let you know. And yeah, if I do, it would be quick, because it's yeah.
Yeah, that's no worries. That's no worries. For myself, you can find me, of course, on the socials at Englishman SDCC, and of course, for now, you can follow all of what we're getting up to at anenglishmaninsandiego.com. However, we are going to be shuttering that site in the next couple of weeks. We are going to be relaunching and rebranding as a new site. If you head to the Convention Collective on Facebook, I will be posting something in the next couple of days to let you know exactly what that's all about. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. If you are supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/EnglishmanSDCC, in about 20 minutes time, I'm going to be jumping on there and having the first of our Talkin Con after show live streams on the Patreon page. No idea how those work. I have no idea if people can actually communicate with us. I don't know if it's just going to be me ranting into the void for anywhere between 5 and 45 minutes, who knows? But that's going to be starting about 30:30. Do join us for that on our Patreon page. If you're a supporter, you should be able to see the live stream come up on that page. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Once again, thank you very much indeed to Alyssa for being an amazing co-host over the last couple of years. Really appreciated all of her contributions. She really has made the show what it is. And yes, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Back again next week, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT. We'll hopefully see you for next week's Talkin Comic-Con, or Talkin Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego, certainly with our special guests, Paul and Jeff from Legion M. Do take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.